West Coast Rafael Devers is in full swing. What does that mean for the Red Sox and the Giants?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to this special crossover edition of Locked On between Locked On Red Sox and Locked On Giants. I am the Locked On Red Sox host, Gabby Maljanian, and I am here with Locked On Giants host, Ben Kaspick. Obviously, no news really at all between these two teams that needs to be discussed right now. We just kind of felt like hopping on here and just, chatting because it's fun. And these two teams do play each other this upcoming weekend. So obviously lots to discuss in terms of that upcoming series and maybe a small trade that may have taken place late Sunday night between these two teams. So lots to talk about on today's show. We're going to get into all of that with the Rafael Devers trade and the upcoming series this weekend and what to expect from both teams. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I know, everybody, it's been a long week for all of us here, probably. Those of you that are listening, Ben and I here, thinking about what went down between the Boston Red Sox and the San Francisco Giants. We're going to get into all of it on this show. First of all, Ben, how are you feeling right now after all of this has taken place?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about it because the Giants have had an impossible time bringing in hitters of this caliber to their organization over many, many years. They have not had a 30 home run hitter since, not just to say Barry Bonds, but Barry Bonds in 04. He played through 07. So it was, it's over 20 years. And there have been, every team has had like at least 4 or 5 guys hit 30 home run, or 4 or 5 times has had a 30 home run season during that span. The Giants have none. And so a hitter of this caliber, he averages over 30 home runs per 162. He's hit 30 home runs multiple times. It's just, I think a star fell into the Giants' lap here. And so the Giants fans, and myself included, are just kind of beside ourselves about that this happened and that it happened so early, too. That was just shocking.
Yeah, what was your initial reaction when this trade news broke? Because I know for me, my initial reaction was shock. Like, did I just read that correctly? Is this a real account or is it a fake Jeff Passan account trying to impersonate him? Like, there's no way that this just happened.
Yeah, so I was on the road. I actually saw your YouTube short as well, and you were in a car as well. So I was driving up to a little vacation spot, and I'm getting all these text messages in my car, like from Jeff, our supervisor or whatever we call him, from Locked On Reds, and why am I getting all these messages? And so I pulled over to check, and that's how I saw it. And my initial reaction was, I believed certainly Jeff, and I was Javi from Locked On Padres, and other friends of mine just all texting me at the same time, and I looked at MLB trade rumors on the app, and it was like Giants to acquire Rafael Devers. And I was like, what? Excuse me? So I was just stunned. I was just absolutely stunned, and I had to know everything, and I've since been kind of still in that mode ever since. It's been many days, and it's kind of calmed down where I figured out how it all went down. I had to look into what the heck. I knew that some of what was going on in Boston, but I wanted more context, and hopefully we can discuss that from your vantage point, as you've obviously had a front row seat to it. Initial reaction was just like, I called it a heist, to be honest, by the Giants. I think the only way you maybe don't regard it as a heist is if you're super concerned about money. But if you're just talking about players, I'm not. I do like some of the players the Giants gave up, but I also like Devers as a player a lot. He's a very good hitter. Like I said, the Giants have a very hard time developing or signing that type of hitter.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point with the money because that was one of the factors in this was the Giants taking on the entirety of the rest of Devers's contract, and that was something that I know they had conversations with a couple other teams about, and those teams weren't as willing to take on the entirety of it. And I think that's ultimately what sold the Red Sox on making the deal with San Francisco because they were willing to pay the entirety of the contract for the rest of it. And that is a big part of it here. The player return, I definitely will say, was underwhelming. We are going to get into that as well. But to me, the Red Sox obviously seemed adamant on, okay, if we're going to unload Devers, let's really go all in and unload the entirety of the contract so that we are not tied financially to any of it. And now this is where the Red Sox are really going to have to go out and make the most of that extra money they now have that they are not using on Devers to continue to go and improve the team in other areas.
Yeah, if they don't, like you said, it's not like the Giants gave up nothing, right? Like I do think Kyle Harris, he was a top 10 prospect by some evaluators as a left-handed pitcher, and James Tibbs III was their first round pick, and some people like him quite a bit. But if that money doesn't get spent, that's where I mean they've got to spend that money. Like it's 30 million a year ish, and over a long term, eight and a half more years at that price. But it's hard to get a player like that. I suppose like you could allocate it to Alex Bregman or something like that if he opts out after the season. But also, you could have kept Devers and done that with Bregman, and so it becomes a little bit of a thing about, okay, why are you're the Boston we've all heard this talk, and you've probably said it maybe on your show, like you're the Boston Red Sox, like it shouldn't be, you shouldn't be like, well, now we have money to spend. Well, you could have spent money anyway with Devers, but you chose not to. I mean, you chose to unload the entire contract. And Giants ownership, the Greg Johnson, I don't know his exact title, but he represents ownership. He's the son of the principal owner, and he's like the face of ownership for the Giants. And he was asked point blank, if you aren't willing to take on the entire deal, are you introducing Devers today here in San Francisco? And he stood there and kind of thought about it for a second, like, should I say this out loud? And he was like, no, we're not introducing him today if we're not willing to take on the entire thing. So it was clear that it was a motivating factor by the Red Sox to unload the entire thing. And as a Red Sox, if I was a Red Sox fan, that would make me angry because it's essentially saying you could have got a better return from a player perspective if you were willing to pay down some of the contract, but they didn't want to. They just wanted to get rid of it, and so they better spend that money. Would be my perspective.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I am hearing is that the Red Sox had the opportunity to get better players in return for him by other teams that were willing to give up better talent and just kind of take on, a good portion of the salary, but have the Red Sox also help take that on. And that's the part that's really disappointing here because, like you mentioned, it's the Boston Red Sox. Like, why are we acting like some small market team that doesn't have money? The Red Sox have money and they can afford to pay some of Devers' salary, but get better quality players in return. And I definitely don't want to knock on the players that they did get. I mean, Kyle Harrison, I actually spoke with him with the AAA team last night after he
Wow.
kind of reported to the team. And he's really excited to be here. He's really excited to kind of prove his worth after being, associated with a trade of a player of that caliber. And there's a lot of aspects of his game that I think he does really well. Big swing and miss guy, really good fastball, just has to kind of work to get a couple more competitive pitches in his arsenal. And that's something they want to focus on with him at the AAA level now. So there's definitely not a lack of talent in what they got. I just think that they could have gotten more. So it's hard to sit here and say, no, the Red Sox didn't get snubbed, at least from looking at this scenario right now as we, start to see this whole thing play out.
Yeah, and that's really cool that you met Kyle. I've never met him or spoken to him, but from every interview I've ever seen, like he's just such a mature, good young man, and he's got a lot of talent. And when he's, I think you're right. Like his fastball plays, but there's not a lot beyond that. He's got this slurvy breaking ball that just kind of hasn't really been effective as a secondary pitch. He's worked on a changeup, I think, and it's not really been a factor. But the fastball is electric when it's on, and lately he was throwing hard. Like he kind of lost some velocity last year when he was a full-time starter. He basically started the whole season in the Giants rotation as like a 22-year-old. And this year, I think he was like sick in spring training. But anyway, he came back eventually to the major league team, and he was just blowing smoke, throwing like 97, 98. But without really a starter's repertoire, it's just the fastball. So yeah, if they can develop some secondaries, then he has a lot of potential, and that's why he was highly regarded. But still, Devers right now is like one of the best hitters in baseball, and so there's no doubt the Giants at this moment in time got the best player out of this trade.
Absolutely, and we really hope you treat our Rafi well. That's our guy there, and obviously him being a homegrown star and the face of the franchise is really what hurts the fans the most about this. He was supposed to be the guy you were building the team around, and now all of a sudden we're shipping him out. So that's what people are having a hard time grasping. But like I do say, if the Red Sox make a playoff run still, all of a sudden people are going to say, well, was it for the best? And that's what we're going to be discussing next is what exactly does this move do for both of these teams in terms of their playoff chances? I know that I am notorious for late night snacking, like while I'm sitting and watching TV, and maybe while the Red Sox are on this crazy West Coast trip where games aren't starting until 10 p.m. and I'm up all night watching them play. I need my snacks, and I always feel guilty if I don't have healthy snacks. So that's why I've turned to Wonderful Pistachios, which are absolutely addicting. And that pistachio flavor is something that you won't be able to get away from. Ask my mom, because pistachio is literally her favorite flavor. So she has not stopped getting these ever since she started getting them at the store. And same with me, because I don't feel guilty and I can still have my late night snack that helps solve that hunger issue for me, but not feel like eating junk food at that time. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I'm going to be asking all of you if you purchase them, those Locked On Red Sox listeners, because you won't look back once you do.
They're good.
Yeah, so there you heard it from Ben himself. They're good. And you know who else is good? Rafael Devers. And obviously, from a Red Sox fan perspective, people are really not going to recover from this for a long time. And it really does send a tough message to other players around the league that the Red Sox aren't always loyal to their homegrown stars. And, one of the biggest things that ultimately led to this whole thing was there was a lot of tension between Rafael Devers and the front office, primarily caused by the front office because they never really gave him a heads up that they were even shopping the third base market in the offseason. And then all of a sudden, Alex Bregman decides to sign with the Red Sox. And I don't know how confident the front office was that he was going to choose Boston. They really were unsure. So then all of a sudden he says, hey, I'm going to Boston. And that surprised me, too. I didn't think he was going to end up choosing us either. So the Red Sox say, oh, by the way, hang up your glove. We're going to have you DH. And he was like, what? I'm sorry. Like, I'm a third baseman. What are you talking about? And I don't think he liked the way that was handled because they completely blindsided him. And then he DHs. He gets off to a historically bad run to start the season. Nobody knows what the deal was with that. Definitely in his head a little bit, probably about not playing in the field. Then he was able to adjust to that. Has been having a great offensive season since that first, few weeks. Then Tristan Casas, their first baseman, goes down with a season-ending injury. The Red Sox feel like they have no other choice. So they say to Devers, hey, we need you to play first base. And he doesn't respond well to that either. And essentially when Devers was talking about it over the last couple of days after the trade, he said, it's not what you're asking me to do, it's how you ask me to do it, because now he's saying he'll play anywhere that the Giants need him to play. So ultimately, the front office caused a lot of tension with Devers. They said they met with him and they couldn't come to a resolution about his future with the team. So while you hear that, there were some issues there, it was caused by the front office. And I don't think that the Giants are going to have similar issues with him. Supposedly, the issues were leaking into the clubhouse a little bit. And his relationship with his teammates was starting to, go downhill a little bit. And Craig Breslow, the Red Sox GM, was talking about it, and basically in his press conference said, we are really strategic about the environment that we surround our young players with. And we didn't necessarily feel like that environment was where we needed it to be, is essentially what he said as to the primary reason why they traded him. So it started with all of that they didn't think he was creating a good environment for the younger players. And it became harder and harder for them to justify paying him as much as they were to be a DH. However, you guys are getting the good end of the deal here, because I don't think he asked for a trade, but he wasn't also opposed to a trade. So now he's here with you guys. He's willing to play where he needs to play. And I think the Giants know not to handle it the same way that the Red Sox did.
Yeah, and I watched that. Like I said, I couldn't stop consuming information about this. So I watched the Craig Breslow and Sam Kennedy, is that his name?
Yeah.
I watched that press conference, and I mean, it sounded like they had consulted with like a PR disaster firm, because they kept saying like buzzwords like we couldn't find, it was alignment.
Alignment
right?
was the word they loved using.
They used that like 20 times, and they kicked him on his way out the door, and I don't think other players. I'm certain that other players around the league took notice of what the kind of stuff they said about him on his way out the door. And one other thing I read David Ortiz's comments, but also I watched some Pedro Martinez, and I have a question for you. Like, I have a quote here from Pedro. He says, "If you try to sell to me, knowing Rafi Devers, that Rafi is a bad teammate or he's not a team player, you're lying. You're going to tell me he's a bad influence in the clubhouse? He's not. Does he want to play every single day? Yes, that's probably why he was mad. Well, the thing got mishandled from the get-go. This should have been in the hands of baseball people, not front office people, not leaking it to the media." So he also said, "I can tell you one thing 100%, and I want everybody to quote me on this. Devers is a team player. Devers will do anything to try to win a ball game for his team. Whoever tries to point a finger at Devers about not being a team player is totally wrong." What are your reactions to that quote from Pedro?
Yeah, I did see that actually too. And I think there is a sense of Devers isn't completely blameless here in the situation, especially when it came to playing first base, because that was obviously a situation in which somebody goes down with a season-ending injury. And at that point, it's kind of like you need to just do what's best for the team, like put your issues with the front office aside. Because one of the other things that Ortiz had said that was interesting was, my time with the Red Sox wasn't all roses either. Like, I had my issues as well when it came to front office stuff, but we kept everything internal. And when Devers came out publicly and expressed his disappointment in Craig Breslow in the front office, I think that was really when the Red Sox started to say, okay, this is not going to work anymore. This relationship's not going to work anymore. So while it is primarily the front office's doing, I do think there is a little bit of Devers having to try to be a little bit more accommodating to do what the team needs him to do at that point in time. Now, obviously, his defense at third is not great. And Alex Bregman clearly defensively is an upgrade at third base. That was no mystery. And then the first base situation happens and they say, hey, we need you to play first. And he's like, why would I go back and do that when you already said you don't need me to play in the field anymore? I do believe that there is credibility to what Pedro's saying, in that Devers wasn't intentionally trying to do anything that was being a bad teammate. I just think some of his actions and behaviors could have been handled better than they were. And there has been situations in the past of him not really being a good team leader. And I think that was ultimately what led to a lot of what's being reported about his relationship with his teammates and his relationship with the front office. While it wasn't intentional, it really was coming across in some ways like he wasn't putting the team first because of the things he was saying and the way he was handling it. But I do think Pedro means what he says in that Devers isn't intentionally or doesn't want to be a bad teammate, and he wants to go out there and just play baseball to the best of his ability and help his team win. I just think that this whole thing got miscommunicated from the get-go, and it just caused him to feel a certain way about the Red Sox front office, and I just don't think they were ever going to come to a resolution on that.
Yeah, and that seems like Breslow was asked about that, and he's like, I have to be humble enough to evaluate the every conversation I have with a player, and it does seem like the whole thing was potentially avoidable, especially when he goes to San Francisco and right off the bat he's like, I'll play wherever you want me to play, and part of that is that there's no context here. It's a brand new start, right? There's all these years of context with the Red Sox and promises that were made, and when he signed the extension, my understanding is that he was kind of promised that he would play third base for like the most of it. And then, of course, Chaim Bloom sees the door, and then Breslow comes in, and there's all these complicating factors, right? But the fact that he comes here and he's like, yeah, I'll play first base. He's taking grounders at first base. He's like, I'm gonna be out there every day taking grounders like all day, like until I'm ready, and just wherever they want me to play, I'll play. And so I don't know, like it happened. It's over. Like the trade is done, and so probably best like for both sides to try to move on at this point. But from the Giants standpoint, it's like you feel like a superstar just fell from the sky and landed on your roster is how it feels, to be honest. I know he's defensively limited. He's never played a professional inning at first, so we'll see. Like maybe he could be solid there, and that would enhance his value. And because to be just a DH is pretty limiting, in terms of for 8.5 years, you better hit, if you're going to be just a DH, and you can't put other people in the DH spot. So I get that it can be a log jam and create problems, and I get why the Red Sox, especially losing Casas, wanted to move him there. But it seems like all this context was he was just fed up, and he was just like, no. Do your job. Get a first baseman. But I get why he did that. But I also understand what you're saying. That was when I first kind of caught wind of all this. Was I watched him speak to the media about this, and I was like, dang, he doesn't seem like a good team player. When I heard all that, but since all this, I've kind of picked up more of the context, and there's blame to go around, and the situation was what it was, and now he's a Giant, and it feels like fortunate that it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think the two sides were ever going to reach a solution. I think they tried because they had that meeting. John Henry, the owner of the Boston Red Sox, met with him, and it just seemed like there just was no resolution to be had. Like you mentioned, his skill set can be limiting if you are just going to hit, but I mean, he's a great guy to just hit because he is going to produce for you offensively, and you are going to find that it's a big added boost to your lineup. How do you feel like that's going to help when it comes to your team's ability to contend for a World Series?
Tremendously. I hadn't mentioned the term World Series like probably one time all year until they made this trade. And I was like, the Giants could win the World Series because they have pitched very well this year. A lot of people think they always pitch well. Well, they haven't always, in the last many years when they haven't been very successful, haven't always been third in baseball in ERA like they are right now at 3.29, but they have had trouble scoring runs. And in fact, even with Devers the last few days, they scored exactly 2 runs in all 3 of his games. But you can't blame it on just him. He's had 3 hits and a couple walks already, a double, 2 singles, couple walks. Matt Chapman is out, but all of a sudden, I mean, he can win you several games with one swing, and their pitching has been so good. Their bullpen has been the best, and they've been in a lot of tight games. And if you can just get, with a couple guys on base, hit a double in the gap, or with a couple guys on base, hit one over the fence a few times, 15 times in a season. Like those are games you might have otherwise lost. I'm not saying he's going to add 10, 15 wins, but at the same time, like they have been missing a big bat in their lineup forever since Barry, basically since Prime Buster Posey. It has been hard to get like real impact bats here, and they got one. And he's been taking some ferocious hacks. Let me tell you that. I don't know if he's always swinging ferociously, but that swing is a beautiful left-handed ferocious swing, and I'm looking forward to him. He hasn't quite connected on one. He said he was trying to homer in the first game. He didn't. He hasn't hit a homer yet. Maybe he's saving it for tomorrow when they face, or Friday. You probably listen to this on Friday. Maybe he's saving it for the Red Sox, hitting one into McCovey Cove. We shall see.
Yep, when he's trying to swing for the fences, you know it. It's very clear in that swing, which I definitely will miss. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about next is what's going to happen with Devers when he does come up against his former team this weekend. If you love sports betting, there's no better place than FanDuel. My husband actually uses it every single day. He sits at the kitchen table in the morning when he wakes up and he looks at what games are going on that day, figures out what he wants to bet on, and then he bets on it. And he's won a ton of money over the last year or so since he started using it. And when I say every day, I mean legitimately every single day. He works baseball in. Now that hockey and basketball were in the playoffs recently, he was making bets on them too. So lots of different sports you can bet on. He's now betting on WNBA because they're in season now too. So if you want to bet on a lot of different sports and win a ton of money, FanDuel 100% is the place for you. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up right now. Just head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Well, we're here, and the Red Sox are, in San Francisco, ready to face your team that has Rafael Devers on it. And the Red Sox, as of late have been playing good baseball. They've won 5 of their last 6 series. They're seemingly turning things around and playing the way that people thought they were going to play the entire season, because the first couple months of the season have been rough, and they just, from a pitching standpoint, were not getting what they needed. They just won their series in Seattle, the first series without Devers, which is really significant for this Red Sox team. They're coming in with some momentum here, and they're hoping to continue that momentum in San Francisco, but they are missing a lot of offensive productivity. The bats really haven't been getting it done a lot as of late. It really has been more the pitching, because their starting pitching in particular has really turned things around. So I'm interested in seeing how that goes for this Red Sox team that really needs to fill that void without Devers in the lineup, which hopefully they will do as we get closer to the trade deadline. But what are the biggest things that you're looking for from Devers and the Giants in this weekend series?
The big question is, can they hit? So it sounds like that's kind of going on for both teams right now. And I like my chances with a guy like Devers in the middle of the lineup. It is unfortunate. Yeah, Matt Chapman, I think he's a little bit underrated as a hitter. He's just such a steady presence and all that, and he's missing right now. So that has hurt them, but adding Devers in there, they've still had a hard time. But I think now that he's settled in, I think it's like perfect timing from the Giants' perspective with all this, is that he has had his little 3-game series against Cleveland to settle in, and now Boston comes into town. And
extra motivation there.
The first game, they gave him a standing ovation when he was introduced. He struck out in his first at-bat. They gave him a standing ovation on his way back to the dugout. And they continued to stand throughout the game every time he came up. And I would expect, that kind of settled down in the second and third games against Cleveland, but I would expect when Boston comes into town, it's going to be, people are going to understand the context and go crazy for him every time he comes up. And I would expect him to want to meet the moment. Will he do it? I don't know. But I think he's going to want to put some good swings on some baseballs in this series. And Giants, they tend to pitch pretty well, and it'll just be a matter usually of can they put like 4, 5 runs on the board, and if they can, they have a pretty good shot of winning. Their bullpen, like I said, best in baseball in terms of ERA. You're going to miss Logan Webb, but I think we're going to miss Garrett Crochet, so the ace is not going in the series. But it's a good matchup, and it's especially intriguing with the Devers storyline. So
I know. I mean, if he just destroys us in the series, I'm going to be so angry. But it will be interesting to see him go up against Red Sox pitching. That's something that I'm really looking forward to seeing, since that's not something that he's ever had to do. So I'm interested in seeing how our pitchers adapt to having to pitch to him, because now they'll understand what opposing pitchers have always felt like going up against him at the plate. So I'm interested in seeing the approach that our pitchers take when they see him step into that batter's box, because now they'll be able to relate to every opposing pitcher ever who's had to throw to Devers.
yeah, and it'll be like the perfect way to see how teams feel like they should attack a hitter, because nobody knows them better than the Boston Red Sox, and so they know, having watched him thousands of times come up to bat, like what's the best way to attack him. And so I'm interested to see like how do the Red Sox feel is the best way to attack him, and that'll give me a good indication, because I'm just learning him. I've obviously seen highlights and whatnot, but to see a player every day, every swing, every take, I'm going to be watching closely how they pitch to him, and yeah, to see him go up is just going to be theatrical. And I think the whole baseball world is going to be watching this series, especially Friday night.
Oh yeah, everybody's so excited for it. I mean, the Red Sox have to hit also. They're not very good with runners in scoring position. They don't have a lot of people who can come up and get that big hit in those types of scenarios. They really have not been putting a lot of runs on the board as of late. It's their pitching that really has stood out. You're lucky that you don't have to see Garrett Crochet. He's absolutely been phenomenal, that I will say, as an off-season acquisition that the Red Sox did get. He's been giving them everything they need and more so far. This year, that Cy Young race is going to be interesting. He's having a great season, but their starters as of late have been giving length, and they've been able to throw a lot better than they were earlier on in the season. Even a guy like Lucas Giolito, who was struggling early on, his last few starts have been really solid. So it'll be interesting to see him go out there and see if he can get the job done. But obviously, I'm hoping for the Red Sox to continue their momentum, but there's definitely going to be added motivation there on both sides. And I'm interested in seeing how Devers adapts to that, being on the other side. And I'm interested in seeing how the Red Sox pitchers adapt as well.
I cannot wait for this series. I think it's unfortunate for y'all and everybody on the East Coast that it's like 10 o'clock at night or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know that I can't believe you have to deal with that.
It's at 10 to 15. Like, that's so late.
It's so unfair. I can't imagine. But
It is unfair.
yeah, so it looks like, Hunter Dobbins, right? It's going to go tomorrow, it looks like, and then Brian Bayo in game 2, and Lucas Giolito gets the third game. And for the Giants, it's Hayden Birdsong, Landon Roop, Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray sneakily having like a Cy Young type season himself, looking like his former self. And Birdsong,
I don't think people would have expected that.
No. It's been a pleasant surprise, and big part of the Giants have been very successful in the games that he started, like 12-3 or something like that in his starts. And just if you look at his numbers alone, not just the team's numbers, they've been great. Hayden Birdsong is a very talented young arm. I would guess the Red Sox wanted him over Kyle Harrison, but they didn't get him. But I would guess that they preferred Birdsong. And
That's
he's
a fun
going.
name.
Yeah, he'll talk to himself on the mound. He's very young. He's got a baby face, as does Devers, of course.
No, there's no way the Red Sox didn't ask about him.
Yeah. They wanted Bryce Eldridge, they wanted Hayden Birdsong, they wanted Carson Wisenhunt. They got some good players, and Jordan Hicks I think is mostly a money offset, but fascinating. And
well, yeah, he's hurt too, so we won't really see the impact of what he's going to actually give us yet. So
not yet, but it's just a toe like inflammation, so he should be back not too long.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't fail us because that bullpen really could use some help as well. You guys definitely have the bullpen advantage in this series, but I'm really excited. We'll have to see what happens here. Hopefully the Red Sox can keep that momentum going because they have been playing good baseball as of late, but they could run into some trouble in this series if they aren't hitting. Sounds like you guys too. So we'll have to see
Yep.
how the offense goes on both sides.
Besides the drama and the Devers and all that, it's a big series for both teams. They're both
Oh,
like contending and going head to head this late in the season, coming up on the halfway point. Big time series. Giants want to get back on track. Red Sox looking to keep it going against a team that's having a good year. So
yeah, Red Sox have gained a lot of ground in their division as of late. So this is definitely a big series for both teams to keep themselves in that conversation of contending. But this was great. I hope you treat Devers well. I know
we
Red Sox
love him.
can all agree with Giants fans on that we all love Raffy, and he's going to give you what you're paying him for. He's a great hitter, and he's going to do big things for you. So hopefully not as much as he did for us, but he'll help you out for sure.
Well, we intend to treat him well. People love him instantly. And so I'm sorry if you're a Red Sox fan listening and you're hurting about this. I wish nothing but the best for Kyle Harrison and everyone else who went over to Boston. I love Kyle Harrison is a very good kid with a live arm, and I hope he has a ton of success there. Just not when they're playing the Giants.
Yeah, he seems it. All smiles from him last night when I spoke with him. He's really excited and happy to be part of the Red Sox organization. So we'll have to see how that all goes. But you can tune into both Locked On Red Sox and Locked On Giants on YouTube or any other podcast platform Monday through Friday. We are here discussing our favorite teams for you. Hopefully, happy stuff for both of these teams as they continue to make their playoff pushes. And somebody needs to stop the Dodgers in that division of yours over there. So hopefully that's something that can happen as well. But thank you, everybody, for tuning into both of these shows. Lastly, like I always end the show with, go Red Sox.